isigebengu is-focused, okay? Bentley says, Andizi, Fissa, we don't know what's happening with him. Everybody's just quiet about him. Baloyi seems to change his story when it's convenient for him. Mangena's version versus Sereo's version is different.
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Pink felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull in a 10. Like Gabby, Stacy, Pinky. All of the Barbies is pretty. Damn, all of the Barbies is bad.
Hello and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Nogwazi Ntombela, also known as Gwaziveye on all social media platforms. Do subscribe, be a part of this family, and if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back, darling. Guys, as you know, every week I bring you an update in the Senzo Meyiwa Trial, so I'm here to do exactly that. Before we get started with the video, please like, please subscribe, and also super thanks if you can. I do have to point out that I am recovering from a cold, so my voice is a bit cranky. You'll just have to excuse that. Let's get into the proceedings for this week. On Monday, the 9th of September, as expected, we had a new witness, Sereo, who is the ballistic expert or analyst who basically confirmed or reviewed Mangena's results in 2020 when he did the ballistic test on the exhibit bullets from the crime scene in the Senzo Meyiwa trial, as well as Senzo Meyiwa case, as well as the bullets or test bullets that were fired from the gun that was allegedly found on accused number 3. So basically on Monday, they went through the testimony of Sereo, who confirms that he did the review of Mangena and he found a positive match on test bullet number 4 as well as number 8, and he says that the marks on these bullets were clearer for him. However, the marks were more prominent on test bullet number 8, and he also says that test bullet number 4 was a CMJ, which is the complete metal jacket made of softer material, and test bullet number 8 was that of an FMJ, which is a full metal jacket. He then basically shows us the marks in court that he was able to compare with, and he says that he used the pattern matching method in order for him to review Mangena's work. Now, as it has been explained by Mangena as well as Sereo himself, there are two methods of identifying or matching or reviewing the test bullets. The first being that's the pattern matching. The second is the CMS method, which is the consecutive matching strier method. Now, according to Mangena's testimony, he had used the CMS method and the pattern matching, and Sereo then says he used the pattern matching. So I'm not an expert in ballistics, and I'm not really sure how one using one method to confirm and one using another method to confirm would give the same results. But basically, from Sereo's explanation, he used pattern matching and Mangena had used CMS and pattern matching. On Monday, they completed his examination in chief, which related mostly to the review that he did. And then on Tuesday, the 10th of September, Mngomezulu then commenced with his cross-examination, and mostly what Mngomezulu touched on is the procedures in which were followed when doing these tests. And he also touches on the fact that the witnesses that were at the actual crime scene, as well as the investigating officer in this case, had said that the gun that was at the scene was a revolver. And what confirms this is that there weren't any cartridges that were found at the crime scene, yet they're saying that a bullet of a 9mm was recovered at the crime scene. And mind you, this was only recovered the day after the incident, after the police had on the day previous, like on the day of the incident, actually checked the crime scene and didn't find any exhibits then. Now, the surprising thing when Mngomezulu put the version of the witnesses that were in the house to this witness, he all of a sudden got really defensive and started saying things like, I had no access to the activities of this case. I didn't attend the crime scene. I have no personal interest. And even the chain of custody with regards to the exhibits, I know nothing about this, which I found very surprising. Why are you removing yourself so much from everything about this case, my guy? Ngomezulu was not saying you were there, but he was just making you understand so that you understand where he's coming from with his cross-examination. But he got really defensive, and then Ngomezulu touched on the fact that Mangena did his confirmation on test bullets 5 and 9, and then he asked Sereo which of those two was an FMJ. Now, Sereo says he doesn't know. This for me is a bit concerning, because how is it that Sereo knows that the bullets that he tested are CMJ and FMJ? However, he doesn't know the rest of the bullets that he compared the exhibit bullets with. It's very surprising, and the surprising thing about it is that Mangena himself also says he doesn't know. And based on the worksheets that they're supposed to use, they should have all this information that I fired 8 bullets, and of that 8, test bullet number 1 is this kind of metal jacket used, test bullet number 2 is this kind, but they don't seem to have that information. But Sereo knows that his bullet was a CMJ, which was test bullet number 4, and an FMJ, which is test bullet number 8. Ngomezulu then completed his cross-examination on Tuesday, and Ramusibile took over. And as well, when Ramusibile also took over, he also touched on the processes, mainly the issue of the worksheet that is used when you're doing the test. He says, according to your procedure, do you not have like some sort of worksheet that you work on to be able to tell maybe the test bullets that you used and everything? And Sereo does confirm that they do have a procedure that they follow, and that worksheet is a part of their procedure. And then he also questions about the different types of conclusions that you can come to with regards to the test. And the range of the conclusions that Sereo mentions is a positive finding, and then you get an inconclusive finding, and then the last one is obviously a negative finding. And then Ramusibile questions on inconclusive findings, is it categorized? And he says, yes, it is categorized into 3 categories. So with a non-conclusive, you can either get a negative non-conclusive result, whereby you have enough class characteristics of the bullet, but not enough individual, or you have enough individual characteristics in, as well. However, the marks or the characteristics are sliding slightly towards the positive side. And then you also have a negative inconclusive, where the results are sliding slightly towards the negative side of the conclusion. And then you have just an inconclusive result where you are not sure. So you're in the middle. The results are not leaning towards any side. It's literally in the middle, so you're not sure of the weapon that was used. Now, another very important thing I think that I touched on last time in my video is with regards to the reason as to why Dave took a bullet that was not shot from the gun that is in this matter. Now, Ramusibile asked Sereo to explain what a known non-match is. Now, when he explains this, he says that an analyst would take 2 bullets shot from 2 different tools. So basically explaining what Dave literally did, and they deliberately compare those tests, and it basically gives you a false positive. Now, what does this say? It says that although these 2 test bullets were shot from 2 different guns, they do have some characteristics that will be the same. So they will have some matching characteristics. However, the amount of characteristics will lean more to the negative side because the guns were obviously different. So he does explain that process, which I felt was very important, because the judge kept bringing up the issue of a gun that Dave the test that Dave did with the gun that wasn't from this crime scene, and you could see that the judge is just not understanding the concept of that, and this was explained very clearly by Sereo in this instance. Whilst Ramusibile is cross-examining Sereo, there's a question that Ramusibile asked Sereo, and before Sereo could answer, Ramusibile says that he caught the judge shaking his head from the corner of his eye. Now, one thing that I like that the defense has been doing lately is they are putting putting everything or all of the judge's reactions and actions into the record, which will come in handy should this case actually go to the Supreme Court. So the judge was shaking his head, and Ramusipile puts it on record that I see that the judge is shaking his head before my witness actually answers. And the judge says, no, this is the response that the witness had told us previously. And Ramusipile says, no, that's not the question I had asked. That's not the question I had asked. And he goes on to ask the question that he actually asked that made the judge shake his head before Sereo actually answered the question, which is very suspicious. The judge tends to have signs. I don't know whether I'm going to call them signs or it's just coincidental that these things happen, but every time the defense is cross-examining the witness and there's an answer that is required from the witness, the judge does have some sort of things that he does that are usually not put on the record, but the defense lately has been doing that. He did it with Ramusipile once before, and he did it with Umnisi again, where he made sounds that were really unacceptable, and the defense putting it on record is a good shot for them. Like, kudos to them. Now, straight after that, Ramusipile then goes to the issue of 4 people confirming Mangena's results. Now, he says, Sereo, in the process of reviewing, you say that when a person gets the results, they'll obviously take their results to someone to review them. And once that person confirms the results as positive, then there isn't a need for them to go to the next person and the next person and the next person. And Sereo says, yes, that is the procedure. But unless there is a disagreement between the analyst and the reviewer, then they will call for a third person to come and review. But in most cases, when the reviewer doesn't agree with the analyst, they show the analyst on the microscope the reason why they don't agree, and then they end up agreeing with what the reviewer actually says. So Ramusipile then says, but are you aware that there were 4 other people or 3 other people that were asked to confirm the very same results that you confirmed? And Baloyi objects to this, and he then says that the other people were asked for an opinion. Now, Baloyi seems to change his story when it's convenient for him, because when Mangena was on the stand, it is on record, I can be quoted on this, Mangena clearly said 3 other people reviewed his work. Now, when 3 people review your work, they need to check your work so that they can actually give an opinion or give a review of what you've done. So when Mangena says they agreed to his findings, they should have done a test to confirm those test results. Am I right or am I right? And Ramusipile basically says, I can hear that the state is objecting, but I will put it to the state that you cannot agree on something that you have not checked. You need to check and verify before you can agree to something. Then Ramusipile completes his cross-examination on Tuesday, and when Mnisi is meant to start, he says that he would prefer not to start with his cross-examination on Tuesday afternoon, as he will have other engagements on Wednesday that will stop him from continuing on Wednesday. So he asked that Nxumalo actually goes first with his cross-examination, and when the judge asks Nxumalo to start cross-examining, he requests that he starts cross-examining on Wednesday. On Wednesday, the 11th of September, Nxumalo is cross-examining Sereo, and he does inform the court that he's standing in for Umnisi, who was absent on Wednesday. When Umnisi cross-examines the witness, he touches on the issues of the IBIS system. Now, this was a very important aspect of the cross-examination, because when Mangena explained about IBIS, he clearly told the court that they don't acquire the bullets onto the IBIS system. They only acquire cartridges. Now, in the Senzo Meyiwa crime scene, we already know that there were no cartridges that were found there. So Mangena basically says because there were no cartridges, the bullets were not acquired on the IBIS system. Today, well, on Wednesday, when Sereo was cross-examined about IBIS and what bullets are acquired on the system, Sereo, without any hesitation, without any doubt, says every single bullet or cartridge is acquired on the system. We acquire revolvers, we acquire rifles, we acquire 9mm. So Nxumalo then asked the question again, do you also acquire bullets onto the system? He says everything. Bullets, cartridges, bullets from crime scenes, cartridges from crime scene, everything, we acquire it onto the IBIS system. And because IBIS is an automated system, what it does is that it automatically compares all the data that is on the system, and if there's a match, IBIS will pick it up immediately. Now, whilst Nxumalo is cross-examining the witness with the issues of IBIS, the judge then asks Nxumalo what the relevance of this is. Now, it is very surprising to me that the judge will ask this question, because we're dealing with an expert here, and for as long as you can solicit information that can assist the court in making a decision about the ballistic part of this case, then you should be able to ask those questions. And Nxumalo basically answers the judge and says there is relevance in the questions that I'm asking, as this is an expert and he's here to assist the court. The questions that I'm asking will assist at the end. And he continues with this cross-examination. This is the first time that I actually saw Nxumalo standing up to the judge, because usually he's very soft and doesn't really respond to the judge. Nxumalo's cross-examination was completed on Wednesday. Then Mshololo took over, and some of the questions that she asked was with relation to the investigating officers being the ones that actually request for the IBIS to be done on certain exhibits. So she says, when an does an investigating officer actually request for IBIS tests to be done? And Sereo's response was that it doesn't need the IO to actually request for it to be done. Every exhibit that comes to the ballistics department, after it has been examined, it is automatically taken to the IBIS system to be loaded onto the system. So we don't require any instruction from an investigating officer or anything like that. Now, what I liked about Mshololo, even though Nxumalo had touched on the issue of IBIS and what exhibits or bullets it acquires, she asked the same question again, and this time she needed like clarity. She even goes as far as saying, so there's a difference between a bullet and a cartridge, and the witness explains now the difference between the two, and he says, remember, a bullet has two components. It has the front part, which is called the bullet, which goes to the target, and then it has the cartridge, which either falls out if it's a 9mm a gun or a rifle, or it stays in the gun if it's a revolver. So he says, so the bullet that is found at a crime scene gets acquired on IBIS. The cartridge, if found on the crime scene, gets acquired by IBIS as well, and also from rifles and revolvers, and he goes on to explain that. So that was explained in detail, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but about 4 times during the cross-examination process. So there's no going back from this. Mangena's version versus Sereo's version is different. Now, another interesting thing that Mshololo touches on is the issue of the bullet that was shown in court. Now, last week sometime, if I'm not mistaken, no, this week actually, on Tuesday or Monday, Sereo did show the bullet that he tested to the defense. And when this bullet was shown, Sereo had that bullet in a handkerchief. It wasn't in a sealed bag, it wasn't in a bag, it was in a handkerchief. So Mshololo questions why this exhibit is in a handkerchief and not an exhibit bag. And Rata does try to say that, no, but this bullet was opened in court when Mangena was here, so that's why it's not in a sealed bag. And Mshololo says, but the process doesn't allow for this exhibit to be handed up in court in a handkerchief, because we don't know where it comes from today. Whether it was handed up in court last week, today we don't know where it's coming from, as it's coming from a handkerchief. And excuse me, another question that Mshololo touches on is the issue of a third person confirming results, which is the same question that Nxumalo asked, and she's very specific in saying what would be the reason for a third person to confirm the results that have been already confirmed by another person. And he says the only way that, or the only reason that can initiates a third person coming in is if the second examiner does not agree with the analyst. Once Mshololo completed her cross-examination, Khumalo had just one more question that he had for the witness, and the question was with regards to the damage on the bullet. Now this was very important because the bullet that was passed in court allegedly had some damage to the tip of the nose on that bullet. And Khumalo then questions, wouldn't that be information that you actually put on the worksheet? And Sereo says, yes, it would be on the worksheet, but it wouldn't be on the reports. So the worksheet that they work on is part of the case file, and Sereo says that case file is available and is in court as well. Those were the proceedings for Wednesday. And then on Thursday, the 12th of September, Mnisi was back in court to commence with his cross-examination. And there was a comment by Sereo made on Wednesday with regards to, we don't live in a perfect world, so some things don't work out according to plan, or something along those lines. I'm not quoting him how he said it, but it was something along those lines. And so Mnisi was questioning him about whether that statement was made based on ballistics or was it just a personal opinion. And the witness was failing to answer this question. And then Mnisi touches on the issue of the sealed bag and what circumstances would warrant for a person to actually collect an open seal bag from the SAP-13. And the witness then quotes or makes reference to the Marikana case, where he says, because of the number of guns that were involved in that case, not all of those guns were sealed. Now, the surprising thing about this statement is that Umncube, accused number 3, then calls Mnisi over to say, regardless of the fact that the guns were many, they were still locked in a vehicle or locked in a trailer or locked in some sort of confined area that is being sealed, not necessarily that they needed to be in individual bags. Which is interesting. Is Kebengu is focused, okay? And then Mnisi then questions Sereo about the method that he used, and he basically emphasizes that he uses pattern matching for the examination that he did on Mangena's test. And we later found out that the reason why he says he uses pattern matching is because he's never been to the training for the CMS, which is the consecutive matching straya. This came up in the cross-exam by Uramsibili at the end, which I will touch on. Another thing that Mnisi touched on is that Mangena said that the test bullet that he had tested and confirmed positive with had a dent, and then questioned Sereo whether he was aware of the dent on that bullet, because he also did examine, well, according to Sereo, he said he examined all 8 bullets, and Sereo says he doesn't recall whether that bullet had a dent. But my thing is, you can recall everything else. You can recall that bullet number 4 was a CMJ. You can recall that bullet number 4 was number 8 was an FMJ, but you can't recall if those bullets had damage. Sereo? Mnisi completed his cross-examination on Thursday, and the re-exam by Advocate Baloyi then commenced. And with the questions in the re-exam, he basically touched on some of the questions that Mnisi had asked. And also, there was a statement that Mnisi made that the defense has no dispute with the state with regards to the bullets being put into or under the microscope. And then Baloyi asked the witness, what did he make of that statement by Mnisi? And the witness then answers and says what he understood by that statement is that the defense agrees that the results were positive. I was like, where did you get that from? And then when Mnisi objects and say he's misleading the record, he then changes the statement and says his understanding was that they agreed that the bullets were shot from the same gun. Now, to confirm that the judge does not understand the issue of a known non-match, he asks this question again to Sereo with regards to Exhibit LL3, which is the pictures that Dave produced to the court comparing a bullet shot from another gun to the bullet at the crime scene. And Sereo basically says that that bullet is of no use in this case, you know. The judge had several other questions that he asked to the witness, and from those questions, Ramosipili then had questions to the witness, of which the judge then asked him, is that procedure? And Ramosipili is like, yes, it is procedure that I can ask questions that arise from the questions from the court. And one of the questions that Ramosipili asked is that, do you have the CMS training? And Sereo then confirms that he was never trained. He's just done some courses or listened to some presentations, but he's never gone to the training that Mangena and Dave both went to. And another question that Ramosipili had was with regards to a particular survey that was done by a popular person in the ballistic field, which says that about 25% of guns shot from different bullets shots from different guns reflect a positive match or something along those lines. I might not be quoting it correctly. Once Ramosipili was done with those questions, then Advocate Mnisi wanted to hand up new exhibits, which he says are statements from Ntini and Phil Yoon, who are the other two people who were said to have confirmed Mangena's results. Now, the funny thing about this is that there was a third person who is Ufisa, whose statement doesn't seem to be part of the statements that were handed up. And the defense had an objection to this, saying that Mngomezulu said that they have an objection to this because the judge had already said that he requires these people to come according to section 186, and now the state is saying they don't intend on calling these people. So he does have an objection with those statements being handed up, and the rest of the defense also confirms such. Mnisi also says the state needs to prove those statements. So basically they still need to bring those witnesses in to actually confirm the statements that they are handing up. Then there was a whole back and forth with Baloyi reading some of the sections in law that actually agree with the fact that he can hand up these exhibits without calling the witnesses. Those were the proceedings on Thursday, and today being Friday, the 13th of September, firstly, the state then says that they'd like to read the statements onto the record, but before that, Mnisi addresses the court and he says that his instruction is that he wants those people to be called to the stand so that they can be cross-examined. And the judge then says that he's making a ruling that those people be called to the stand, and he basically asks when would they want those people to be called, and Mnisi says anytime, like immediately even, they can come. Usibanda then reads into the record the 212 statements from Hrobla, which is Phil Yoon, as well as Ntini, which say that they basically gave an opinion. So it's no longer a review, they gave an opinion, and the judge then gives a short adjournment so that the witnesses can be called to find out when they can actually come to court. After a longish adjournment, Baloyi comes and he says that the witnesses are basically busy on Monday and Tuesday. However, they can be available on Wednesday to be able to come and bring their testimonies to court. Now, Baloyi also requests that the cross-examination be limited just to the tests that they did. And the judge says, no, I can't rule on that. I can't rule as to what questions they can pose to those witnesses. Another interesting thing now in this case, over and above the fact that FISA's statement is missing in action, nothing has been said about FISA, who is the third person who allegedly confirmed, but now one of the witnesses of the state, or should I say witnesses, or one of the people who have a statement that Mangena has been referring to in his testimony Captain Bentley is now saying that he's unable to come to court to testify based on his statement. And the judge then asks, is this like forever? Like he can't come forever? And Baloyi says, yeah, forever, permanently. Like he's not coming. Like he's not coming. He's not coming to court. Like, why are all the witnesses running away from this case? Why are they running away from this case? So basically, Bentley says Andizi Fissa, we don't know what's happening with him. Everybody's just quiet about him. I'm hoping the defense will bring up that name because we need him in court as well. And basically, towards daytime today, Baloyi then updates the exhibits and puts everything on record, and those were the proceedings for the day. So the court was adjourned until Wednesday next week, where we will hear the testimonies of the two ballistic analysts, Grobler or /Viljoen, as well as Ntini. And those were the proceedings for the week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching. Do enjoy your weekend and the long break from this case. Goodbye.